Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Shankly Sessions, of course, the Liverpool podcast. We bring you each and every day on the Upper Tier Podcast on YouTube. If you could go out there, like on the video, smash the subscribe button, and hit that bell notification to be notified every time we go live or release content. This is your Liverpool versus Southampton preview. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Going to be an absolute belter of a match. Nathan Jones instilled as the Southampton manager. Interesting pick. We'll give our thoughts on that shortly. But the breaking news this evening from Sky Sports is that on further review of the incident between Jurgen Klopp and the official at the Man City game, the gaffer has been handed down a one-match ban, effectively immediate, which means the gaffer won't be in the dugout tomorrow at Anfield. No doubt Pep Linders will take over and do a top job in consultation with the gaffer. But this has kind of come out of nowhere. The gaffer obviously thought he had escaped with just a fine, which seemed the most sensible thing to do. But he's been handed down a one-match ban. So we'll have to do with Pep Linders for the last game before we break up for the World Cup. Let's get into this preview. Southampton. Jones, I think, faces a tough start to his Premier League managerial career. The last place you'd want to be going starting out is Anfield against Liverpool. But it was nice. I seen his interview the other day when he was talking about taking on the job. And he said, "So look, it's every manager's dream one day to become a Premier League manager." And that he was absolutely over the moon about being given the opportunity. We know this man has a real good history of developing youth, which might sit in perfectly at the moment what Southampton are trying to do or might have to do. We know they've been struggling. We mentioned it on many a show about myself and Darren that they were in a very dodgy situation. We seen it last year when they were up around mid-table and they went on a bad run and they suddenly slid right down into very close into that relegation battle. So yeah, they were starting from a poor point this season, went on a couple of bad runs. Have some really good players there. I mean, James Ward-Prowse is one we spoke about it last night. I mean, he's a player who should be in the England squad. It's an absolute travesty that man isn't on the plane to Qatar. But let's get into this. The Saints have one win in 6 games. So it's probably no surprise that they had to part company with the governor. He was a guy that both myself and Darren were fond of. We kind of labelled him the governor because we think he's the spitting image of the governor out of The Walking Dead. That's why we call him the governor. If any of you viewers are wondering why we call him that. Jones came in. I kind of thought that maybe Southampton might wait. So a bit of a cold here, folks. I thought that Southampton might wait and survey the landscape and see what's happening in terms of the World Cup. But no, they decided not to wait and they pushed the button and brought in Nathan Jones. So we'll see. But if you look at it there, I mean, penalties the other night against Sheffield Wednesday, not dissimilar to ourselves, going through 6-5 on penalties. So I'm sure that would lift spirits a bit. If they had gone out of the Carabao Cup to Sheffield Wednesday, that would have been a real kicker for them. And they may get some sort of a new manager bounce. And I think that would be required to come away with anything tomorrow from Anfield in the form that they're in at the moment. Liverpool, on the other hand, come into the game on the back of a big win against Spurs, albeit a poor second half, but did the job in the first half. It'll be a much changed side from the team that knocked Derby out the other in the Carabao Cup again on penalties, winning out 3-2. Queven Kelleher, super display from him and nets on the penalties there the other night. He's absolutely top notch. But the standout guy the other night, I think, and we have to mention him, was Ben Doak. I think he was excellent. I seen his mother was posting on Twitter there the other day. I think it was his mother anyway. How proud she was of him. Either his mother or his sister. I think it was his mother. How proud she was of him, and we were all proud of him as well as Liverpool supporters. He was absolutely excellent the other night. But Klopp will definitely want to sign off here with a win. And a win could be huge for us in terms of getting us back into that race for the top 4. which is going to be crucial for us. I mean, we have to talk about, I mean, this whole sale thing that's going on at the moment, and is it a sale? Is it that FSG are looking for investment? Are they looking to exit the football world and move into something else? There were stories come out the other day that they were going to be heavily involved with LeBron and creating this NBA team out of Las Vegas. Are they looking to cash in on their money, maybe to fund that? Will they want to keep a certain amount of Liverpool in their portfolio, which could be very important for them going forward in terms of any other investments they might want to make, because it's been a huge success in terms of the commercialization of the club and the globalization of the club and the job they've done there, albeit they've fallen quite short in terms of on pitch and that development there to keep the success flowing. And then I suppose it depends, it depends who comes in as well. And if we get a Middle Eastern investor, where does that leave Klopp? We know his thoughts on state-owned clubs and all that kind of stuff. He only did an interview the other day about the World Cup and stuff like that. Kind of made his thoughts very clear about how he feels about these things. So if it happened to go to someone like we've been linked with the Qatari royal family or something like that, Qatari investments, if they were to take on Liverpool Football Club, how would that sit with Jurgen Klopp? Would his position be untenable? Would he have to go? Not go, but leave? Or would it sit with him? Would he be okay seeing out another 2-3 years under that regime? How would it sit with him? Should be interesting. So this will all evolve. I think people were kind of ambitious to the point where they thought it might get done during the World Cup break, or it might get done by January or whatever it is. I don't think it's going to be done that quick. I know they've been working on it for a little bit longer than the announcement. We heard the other day that Klopp and them knew sort of start of October. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't think it's going to be done that quick. I suppose it depends on whether it's an investment or whether it's a sale. A sale would naturally take longer, and an investment wouldn't take as long, really. So it depends, really. There's a lack of clarification, really, in terms of that. So we hope that kind of up in the air kind of sale of the club or investment doesn't derail the lads in terms of their focus on the pitch. We don't want anything like that to happen there. Yeah, but Liverpool, as I said, coming in, Ben Doak did a great job the other night against Derby, albeit we needed penalties to get through. And of course, Keevin, we know how good he is when it comes to penalties. Massive win required in order for us to keep our chances of a top 4 position. If you look at current form at the moment, Liverpool, this is league form. We're 3 wins and 3 losses. If you look at Southampton, it's 3 losses, a win, and 2 draws. So very indifferent form. The head-to-head shows 23 games played. Liverpool have won 14, Southampton have won 6, and the draw is 3. So heavily weighted on the Liverpool side, and especially at Anfield. But we know how dangerous Southampton are. Like, we know Ward-Prowse. If you think about the boys, Stuart Armstrong, who's very, very strong, especially running from deep and creating. Aribo, we know how good he is. Shea Adams, we know how good he is. So there's a lot of power there, and then like the set piece ability, and how good James Ward-Prowse is and stuff like that. So we know where the danger is going to come from. So again, it's another game where we need to go out, no complacency, on it from minute 1. It's the last game now before the World Cup. But I suppose we have to be conscious as well that if like players are in there like Konate and Van Dijk, Jordan Henderson, of course, if he makes the starting lineup, and of course Nunez and a couple of other players, if they are starting, we have to be conscious of the fact that they're just over a week away from starting the World Cup in Qatar. And will their mind be elsewhere? And will they be going in 110%? Or will they be quite reserved? We've seen there hasn't been much luck recently. If you look even around the whole Premier League, the amount of players that are missing out of the World Cup now, from recent injuries and stuff like that. And we did talk at length last season even about player welfare, and I know Klopp brought up player welfare, and a lot of people go, "Oh, it's just Jurgen complaining again and bitching again." But you can see now it's coming home to roost. Chilwell getting injured, Reece James getting injured. So many players getting injured. We heard that Sadio Mane may have been a doubt, although he was named in the squad today. But he got injured the other day as well. Diaz, Jota, so many players. And I think the points that were made last season in terms of player welfare are now coming home to roost. And we could even have a situation that come St. Stephen's Day, when the fixtures return, there could be squads even further depleted from potential injuries um, due to the World Cup. And Darren mentioned it last night as well. You're going from a cold climate, cold, wet sort of climate, and you're moving to a very hot climate. And then you're going to be coming home to a cold, wet climate. And normally, these boys normally have 2 weeks or whatever it is, or 2.5, 3 weeks in some cases, to climatize to these things. But they're not going to have that time because the World Cup literally kicks off a week after we break up. And we're basically back in action, basically nearly a week after they return. So there's and in some cases, I think it's 3 or 4 days. So there's going to be no time to reclimatize. There's going to be no downtime. And that's a real concern, a real concern. And I feel sorry for the lads who have missed out, especially the likes of Reece James and stuff like that, who would have had a huge World Cup. But obviously Jota as well is a tough one, and Diaz and our own players as well. It's a real tough one as well. So, but that's the way it goes. What can we do? Let's get into some team news here then. Liverpool are missing Diaz, Keita, Jota, Arthur. Mataba's back in training, but probably unlikely to feature. I'd be surprised if he's back in, unless the gaffer's really taken a view on Van Dijk or Konate or stuff like that. But his priority has to be the Premier League. His priority will not be the World Cup, and far from it. Omar online in the comments. How are you, man? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on and tuning in, as always. So I don't know. When you look at Milner returning from a concussion, but I think Klopp will revert back to his strongest side, and that's what we would expect. Southampton, Jones kind of favours a back three when he's playing, and that might work in his favour at the moment with Livramento and Walker Peters out injured. Shea Adams and Elionisi should return to the starting lineup. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think Jones will set up probably with the three at the back and stuff like that. So he'll pack the midfield, trying to win the midfield battle. So he'll probably go out with an aggressive game plan, I would imagine. Because the kind of the conservative approach so far hasn't worked for them anyway, that's for sure. So if you look at Southampton's possible lineup, Bazunu in goals. It's mad to think Gavin Bazunu, of course, we'd have an affection for him over here in Ireland anyway. He's a fantastic goalkeeper for Ireland. But he's been really good for Southampton. And in a lot of games where they've chalked up maybe 3 or 4-0 losses, it could have been 7 or 8. He's more often than not, even on the back end of a bad loss, he's been their man of the match, and he's been really good for him. And it's great to see him get that game time. So Bazunu in goals, Yanko, Delacote, Chap, Salusi, Eloisi, Ward Prowse, Lavia, Stuart Armstrong, Perrod, Aribo, and Adams. Now, Aribo is the guy that I like. He's quite the athlete and stuff like that, but he's quite aggressive in his play as well. But he creates a lot of movement as well, which I kind of like in those forward positions. Adams as well. We know how good Shea Adams is quite strong on the ball and stuff like that as well. But you would imagine that Van Dijk and Konate, if that's our starting lineup, will be able to handle him. But the one that I'm concerned about as well, and I've said it before, Stuart Armstrong, he's the one that worries me because he tends to pop up and kind of arrives late in those moments and stuff like that and doesn't tend to be picked up. So he's one we're going to have to be careful of. If you look at our starting lineup, I'll bring it up here now for you to have a look. I think it kind of picks itself to a point, You got Allison in goals, Trent at the right back. Maybe Trent might get a bump now after being included in the England squad. That must have been quite the surprise. So he might be fired up. He might be able to kind of recapture some of that form and stuff like that. Going forward, he's exceptional, stuff like that. But it's his defensive duties sometimes get exposed, and we've seen it even in the Spurs game as well there last week. Konate, with the amount of covering he had to do and stuff like that, especially first half. So we'll see how that goes. Konate and Van Dijk at the back. He may throw Matip on for minutes depending on how the game's going, but I think it'll be Konate and Van Dijk. I think he'll go with Robbo there. Costas played during the week there against Derby, so he might sit him out and play Robbo from the start. Then you've got Thiago and Fabinho in the middle of the park. And then you're going with that kind of diamond up front with Firmino, Salah at top, Nunez out on the left, and Elliott on the right. So you're looking for a lot of link-up play there from Elliott and Salah. And we've seen that starting to flourish as well. But we've also seen the Nunez-Salah partnership there starting to flourish also in previous games. They're starting to get a better understanding of each other now in terms of creating opportunities for each other and also finding each other, which is good. Bobby will have a point to prove. That's why I think he'll throw Bobby in there. Very disappointed that Bobby's left out of the Brazilian side. Not too sure when you look at what's being picked in there ahead of him. His stats tend to weigh up this season. He is having a good season so far. So I don't think there's much more he could do, but I'm sure he'd be disappointed. Likewise, Thiago being left out of the Spanish side is a big one as well. So these boys will have a point to prove tomorrow to show their international managers what they've left behind. And just to keep them in mind as well, in case there's any maybe eventual injuries or something like that, where these boys might be called up late show maybe. But that's the 11 that I'm going with. I think you go with a 4-2-3-1. I think there should be enough strength there in terms of dealing with Southampton. Certainly the back line shouldn't have too many problems. I would be very conscious of the fact of James Ward-Prowse. If we do give away a few set pieces and stuff like that, he can be lethal just outside the box. We know how good he is. He would be one to watch out for. We know the strength and the power of Shea Adams when he's on the run. Aribo can be an awkward player to deal with, but Van Dijk and Konate should be able to deal with him. So that's where I see the danger coming from, and that's what we need to do. Let us know your lineup if you're in the comments. What you think there. I suppose you could slip back into a 4-3-3 and you could go Bobby, Salah on the right, Nunez on the left, and a midfield maybe with Hendo in there, or drop Elliott back into midfield with Thiago and Fabinho. Plenty of choices there at the moment in terms of what we want to do. Something we've been lacking a lot. If you look at the prediction, I'll give you the betting first before the prediction. The betting at the moment, Liverpool are half favourites at 3-11 on. The draw is 6-1 and Southampton are 11-1. Again, the betting, I would say, is doing a little bit of a disservice Southampton, even though they're on a slide at the moment. They do have very dangerous players at times, and when they do start to move and they do start to play well, they have the players there that can hurt you and damage you in a game. So I think it's a bit of a stretch. I'm sure most of those Southampton players will be up for the game tomorrow, especially to impress the new gaffer. Because remember, we're very quickly going off to the World Cup. We're going to be back for the Christmas break, and then all of a sudden we'll be into another transfer window again. So I'd imagine that Nathan Jones has gone in there as well, and they've probably promised him some money to spend in January as well. So he'll be taking a real good look at the squad over the next 4 to 5 weeks. Prediction: I'm going to go with Liverpool 4-1. I'm going to go 2 for Nunez. I'm going to go a set piece for Trent, and I'm going to go with Salah with a fourth. And for Southampton, James Ward-Prowse, probably with a set piece. That's my prediction. So 4-1 Liverpool, 2 for Nunez, 1 for Salah, and a set piece from Trent, and a set piece from James Ward-Prowse. Until next time, Reds, it's been a pleasure bringing you the show. We will be back tomorrow afternoon, right after the match, with a match reaction and player ratings. Don't forget to join us for that. Hopefully, we'll be sounding off for the World Cup with 3 points, and hopefully, again, results go in our favour. We really need that to happen at the moment as we try to creep back up the table again from a really, really poor start to the season. Yeah, and we didn't even mention, what about the Carabao Cup draw? We draw Man City. As the great man Ric Flair, the nature boy, once said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And that's what we'll have to do in the next round of the Carabao Cup. So looking forward to it. Man City, Real Madrid, trying to push back up into that top 4. Plenty of challenges await these Reds, lads, but we got to get behind them. Let's see what happens. Until next time, Reds, If you want to contact the show, it's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Sessions Shankly. You'll also get us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, the upper tier. And we will be back to you tomorrow afternoon. Match reaction and player ratings. Cheers, folks.